Hello, class. Today, our lesson is segregation and integration. Our objective is to identify the effect Brown versus Board of Education had on African American civil rights movement. I'm going to read ahead. As always, feel free to pause when you need to. For instance, when you need to annotate, such as taking notes over the reading sections, and or when you're pausing to answer the questions. I'm going to start with the historical background. The historical background, Plessy versus Ferguson. In Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, the Supreme Court considered the constitutionality of Louisiana law passed in 1890, providing for separate railway carriages for the white and colored races. The law, which required that all passenger railways provide separate cars for blacks and whites, stipulated that the cars be equal in facilities, banned whites from sitting in black cars and blacks in white cars, and penalized passengers or railway employees for violating its terms. Question number 1. What is Plessy versus Ferguson, and when did it happen? When you're ready to keep going, press play. Homer Plessy, the plaintiff in the case, was 7/8 white and 1/8 black, and had the appearance of a white man. On June 7, 1892, he purchased a first-class ticket for a trip between New Orleans to Louisiana, and sat on a vacant seat in a white-only car. He was arrested and imprisoned. Plessy was brought to trial in a New Orleans court and convicted of violating the 1890 law. He then filed a petition against the judge in that trial, the Honorable John H. Ferguson, at the Louisiana Supreme Court, arguing that the segregation law violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which forbids states from denying to any person within their jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws, as well as the 13th Amendment, which banned slavery. Pause and answer questions 2 and 3. Who is Plessy and what was he accused of? Question 3. Which rights did Plessy claim were being violated? I'm going to pick up right here. The court rejected Plessy's arguments that the law stigmatized blacks with a badge of inferiority, pointing out that both blacks and whites were given equal facilities under the law and were equally punished for violating the law. In 1954, large portions of the United States had racially segregated schools, made legal by Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, which held that segregated public facilities were constitutional so long as the black and white facilities were equal to each other. Question number 4. What was the result of the Plessy versus Ferguson case? When you're ready to keep going, press play. I'm going to pick up here. The end of segregation, Brown versus the Board of Education. Brown versus Board of Education was filed against the Topeka, Kansas School Board in 1951 by Oliver Brown, parent of one of the children denied access to Topeka's white schools. Brown claimed that Topeka's racial segregation violated the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause because the city's black and white schools were not equal to each other and never could be. The federal district court dismissed his claim, ruling that the segregated public schools were substantially equal enough to be constitutional under the Plessy Doctrine. Brown appealed to the Supreme Court, which reviewed all the school segregation actions together. Question number 5. What is Brown versus Board of Ed and when did it happen? When you're ready to keep going, press play. I'm going to pick up right here. The Supreme Court decision held that racial segregation of children in public schools violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which states that no state shall make or enforce any law which shall deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. The court made clear that the 14th Amendment guarantees equal education today. In this context, any child denied a good education would be unlikely to succeed in life. Where a state has to provide universal education, such education becomes a right that must be afforded equally to both blacks and whites. Question number 6. What was the Supreme Court decision? When you're ready to keep going, press play. We're going to pick up here. Integration, the Little Rock Nine. Despite the new ruling of the Supreme Court, some schools in the South did not allow black children in Little Rock, Arkansas. Did not allow black children. In Little Rock, Arkansas, a plan was put together to slowly integrate the schools, but it allowed for integration very slowly and didn't allow for blacks to attend some high schools. As we see here, we have a picture of protesters trying to stop the Little Rock Nine from entering the school. Who are the Little Rock Nine? One of the high schools that blacks were not allowed to attend was Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. The local leader of the NAACP, otherwise known as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, was a lady named Daisy Bates. Miss Daisy recruited 9 African American high school students to enroll at Central High. The 9 students were Elizabeth Eckford, Minnie Jean Brown, Gloria Ray, Terrence Roberts, Ernest Green, Thelma Mothershed, Jefferson Thomas, Melba Patillo, and Carlotta Walls. These students became known as the Little Rock Nine. First day at school. When the Little Rock Nine went to attend the first day of school on September 4th, 1957, they were probably scared and worried. When the students arrived, there were people yelling at them. In addition to the other students, there were National Guard soldiers blocking their way into the school. The governor of Arkansas had developed the soldiers to prevent the students from going to school and in defiance of the Supreme Court. The students were scared and they returned home. Armed escort. After the Arkansas governor got involved in stopping the Little Rock Nine from attending school, President Dwight Eisenhower took action. He sent the United States Army to Little Rock to protect the students. A few weeks later, the students attended school surrounded by Army soldiers. Pause and answer questions 7 and 8. Who are the Little Rock Nine? Question 8. What effect did they have on the civil rights movement? When you're ready to keep going, press play to start completing your daily summary. Daily summary. Use both bullet points to write a well-organized paragraph that includes facts, details, and information from the class reading. Discuss the historical background of segregation in the United States. Also, evaluate the positive or negative impact integration had on America. As always, be sure to use our T-Bear writing structure, topic sentence, brief summary, evidence, analysis, and wrap-up line. And of course, we would also like to see you incorporate one or more of the historical themes into your finished product. If you have any questions, please write them down and be sure to bring them to the classroom tomorrow. Bye.